Hello. I still have my fan going behind me, which I know is improper filmmaking, but it's hot as out right now, so I'm not turning that off. I was in the beginning process of starting to work through a monologue that I want to add to my repertoire. So I thought, hey, I can't really find any YouTube videos or quick, easy explanations of people's processes in how they develop a monologue within themselves and like practice it. So that's what I am going to run you through my process today. I haven't done this actually like fully sat down and like made a whole process out of it in a while. I may be a little rusty. Feel free to add in and let me know about any techniques that you do that I maybe haven't mentioned. But yeah, now I can make a whole separate video talking about my process for finding a monologue, which is also kind of an annoying thing to do. It's a little too much to add into here. At least for context of where this monologue is coming from, it's not a monologue, technically. It is transcribed from a YouTube short that I watched by Miles McKenna. I will link it in the description of this video if you want to see the original that I'm basing this monologue off of. I resonated so much with what he said that I was like, hey, this would actually work really well for just like a minute and a half or whatever piece. If I resonate with it already, it's gonna be a lot easier to work through it. Step 1, physically writing it down. Like I said, this is just my method. If you do this another way, there's no wrong way really to do this. I'm just giving context for how I do things. I just finished writing the whole thing down. Great way to start memorizing it is to physically write it down. Already makes me feel like I have like some grasp on the vague shape of the beats and everything. Step 2, memorizing it. Ooh, the least fun part. But there are ways to make it a little bit simpler and less intimidating. First of all, my best advice in terms of memorizing, I got this advice from my teacher in high school. Thank you, Mr. Rose. Memorize it without emotions. Makes it a lot harder at first to actually like get it down, because that is a bad habit of mine, and I think a lot of actors, is that we tend to memorize it with the emotions that we initially suspect. We haven't worked through it yet. We don't know the character's motivations yet or anything like that. So it's like, you're gonna apply something that it's gonna be harder to break out of a certain action or motivation to play around with it later on if you memorize it with that emotion. As frustrating as it does make things, memorizing it by rote, just like a robot, trying to just know the physical words to the point where you don't have to think about what you're about to say next, is a good place to start. Takes a while though. Breaking it down into chunks. And there's 2 different forms of breaking it down into chunks that I want to mention. First, there's major changes, the chunks of the monologue that feel like, okay, this is me talking about a separate thing or mentioning something else or switching tone. Those I call chunks. The second sort of separation you do after is beats. There can be just 1 beat within a chunk. There can be like 4 or 5, but let me give the monologue example. In the first chunk that I have separated here, I'm just gonna overlay this. Essentially what I separated the first chunk in is feeling like the first pause or switch in a thought. Same topic, but just a change in thought. I feel like it's something you really just have to feel out. Like I said before, there's no right or wrong answer necessarily. It's just what feels truthful to you. Within this chunk alone, there's already like at least 3 beats. So let's work through that. The first beat that I'm feeling with this is the first 2 sentences. You really want to know what no one will ever tell you or like warn you about starting to take testosterone? The words of endearment that men will use to refer to you in public spaces. Now I'm switching to the next line. It's cool when you first start out. It's like I'm correcting myself. I'm giving a however, like, oh, don't worry. I mean, hey, you know, it feels good at first. So I would say that's a beat. Not change necessarily in emotion, but maybe a change in tactic, maybe a change in action, something like that, which we'll get to explaining in a minute. And the second beat, I would say, is most of the rest of the line. It's cool when you first start out. Hey dude, what's up bro? How's it going, man? And you're like, yeah, this is gender affirming. This is what I wanted. This is correct. I'm safe. I would say the last word is the last beat. Feels like it should be a beat on its own. I would say there's no right or wrong answer. You could say there's only 2 beats in this or separate them differently, but I would say that there's 3 beats within this first chunk. And in terms of memorization, that's where I start. Start by learning the first beat, those first 2 sentences, then the next, and then the next, and now I've got the first chunk memorized. It becomes a lot less intimidating. At least for me. Up next, we are going to be hyper-focusing in on who the fuck we are. If your monologue is coming from like a play or an existing piece of media, like most do, you kind of have 2 options. You can go with guidance from the rest of the show up to this point. I'd recommend having read the whole play or seen the whole play, just being familiar in general. That can guide you to figuring out a lot of this stuff, but it's not always necessary. If you know the context of the entire chunk of monologue, that's good enough. Like, it's good to know what you're coming from, but in terms of being able to play with it a bit more, don't take it as like the Bible for the character. You are the one acting. You still get to decide the specifics. So I usually start out with listing the base values of my character. Like, what are their personal values? Do they value honesty, or do they value getting what they want? Those things will change their tactics. Once you know their base values, like as a person, then, or character, might not be a person, then I like to write down and decide what do they want and why. Keep it simple. Don't try to overcomplicate it. It should be a very short single sentence to describe what they want. Could be technically through the whole show, if you know the whole show. I recommend it being something substantial as well. So it can't just be like, I want a bag of chips. It is a big thing that they are desiring, motivated towards. And I usually like to highlight the one line that in the whole monologue I feel like is the most important thing to emphasize. Usually comes about in the middle or near the end. Every day of my life, I am Buddy. Feels like the most important line. No one can miss that. That is what I like to highlight. So here I have written down what I interpret as the most important values that are expressed in this monologue. I would say honesty, especially given the first line. You really want to know what no one will ever tell you or like warn you. Empathy. Theme in this monologue is feeling what other people are feeling. Fairness, seeing me getting treated the same way as other men, wanting to get treated the same way, which is along the same lines of respect. So I would say good 4 set of values is a good place to start. Up next, we're gonna hit the what and the why. For what, I put to be seen and act the way that I feel I deserve. The why, I struggled with for a little bit. Nah, that's not big enough. That's not core enough. To feel more a part of my own life. Forgot to mention this, but another thing that is good to know with the what and the why is to who, before I get into tactics. Who are you talking to? And who are they in relationship to you? You're gonna talk very different to your mom than you would to your best friend or your teacher. So knowing who you are speaking to in this monologue, it's a good idea to have a monologue that you're speaking to someone. I have the opinion that monologues are much weaker if you are not physically speaking to someone. If you're just talking to the stars, you're not gonna have as rich and dynamic of a performance. I forgot to mention this beforehand, but I'm coming back to mention it. You're gonna wanna separate the beats by a change in tactic. How are they adjusting their approach to this person? How they are trying to get through to the other person. They are trying to persuade them now. They are trying to confide in them now. Those are the beat changes. That's a good way to separate them. It's not 100% accurate, but it's a nice little tip. I've decided to who I am speaking to, and it switched around a lot of my previous expectations. What is now to to warn my friend, because I have decided that in this monologue I'm going to be speaking to another trans person that is a friend of mine who is earlier in their transition than me. But that also changes my why. So if what I want in this is to warn my friend, why? To make myself feel better. Definitely a lot of beyond warning, it's also complaining. So I definitely think I am warning them in order to make myself feel better. It gives me a lot more of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Initiative. When I go into it, when I start. Now this may look intimidating because I've got a lot of beats in this monologue. However, going through each individual beat and deciding a few different tactic action verbs for each beat is a great next step, and still highlight the most important beat in the monologue. And if you don't have like a reference for good tactics, literally just Google. What I did is beat change action verbs. It has to be things like to comfort, to admit, to inspect, to warn, because it's what you are trying to do to the other person in the scene in that moment. I am trying to comfort you. Now I'm trying to question you, because these are going to be the emotion changes, and it's good to have multiple options so that when you are practicing and running through the monologue, you have different options for each moment that you can switch it out with and see what feels best. For reference, the beat before the most important line, I could either be trying to teach, I could be trying to tease them, or I could be trying to describe something to them. Each one of those three verbs can have a different reading. I can act differently depending on what exactly I am trying to do. Because we're not just speaking to speak. We are saying things to either convince someone of something or confide in them. There is a reason for everything that we say, even ones that contradict each other, so that you have room to play around with it. I go from trying to teach them to confiding in them. That's a big shift in one sentence, but if I choose to read it through that way, then I have the opportunity to see if that works, and maybe it does and maybe it doesn't. But once I have set these in, it becomes a lot easier to play around with it. It becomes a lot less up in the air. Up next, what changes? I stopped doing the step numbers, didn't I? Damn. Well, this is step 6. What has changed in my tactics from beginning to end? It's very useful to get a general picture of where I start and where I end. Because if I keep in mind where I need to begin and where I need to end, I don't need to, in the moment, remember necessarily every single tactic specifically, as long as I know where I'm going. So in this, I said I went from being for the other person to making it about me. So at the beginning, I'm doing more things like confiding and instructing and relating to and warning, but near the end, it's a lot more of erupting and persuading and mourning and admitting. It becomes more about my experience than any advice. The final step in preparation, before you get to actually working through the monologue, speaking it, recording yourself, I can make that a separate video. When you get to the point of actually acting it out and working through it and trying the different tactics, it's a good place to know where you are starting the scene. It seems backwards to get to the end of the tactics and then go back to the beginning, but it does make it easier. At least in my mind, the order of any of this could really be mixed up, but I feel like this is the order that makes sense to me, and this is my video, so I like to set a location. With monologues from plays or movies, you have the location set usually. It's like you have the person that you're speaking to set, really. If I'm having this conversation in a coffee shop, I'm gonna be gesticulating and speaking at a different volume and different intonation, looking around differently to see if people are listening, than if we are talking outside of a bar or in like a bedroom. Knowing that will also inform your decisions. What state is your character in when they enter the scene? Before they even say the first line, what emotion are they feeling? What makes them start speaking? Are they in the middle of a conversation or just starting it, like just initiating a conversation? Is this something they've been meaning to say or something they thought of that second? Those are things that will also help the first moment of the monologue be a lot more rich and a lot more informed, rather than just sort of a slow increase into the character. It makes it a lot easier to do that first line. I would show the process also of practicing, but that's probably gonna have to be another video because I've been yapping my ass off and this is a long process. And like I said, no part of this is law. Like, everyone does something different. This is my personal method. I wanted to make this video to hopefully help someone else that is trying out acting and new to working on monologues. If you'd like to see the finished piece that I've been working on, recording and practicing it all of today and tomorrow, so hopefully I'll have it up soon, and I'll put that in a separate video. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. As I said before, let me know any other tactics, tips, methods, and stuff that you may use or have heard of before in the comments below. I'd love to learn more. It's a very collaborative art. I'd love to collaborate and learn from you guys as well. Hope you got something out of this. Thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.